Parliamentary committee is looking into whether current laws are sufficient to protect Canadians' privacy. So the House of Commons Ethics and Privacy Committee has called for a study after the RCMP revealed its tools covertly obtain data from devices, including phones and computers. Now, the Canadian Civil Liberties Association released a statement in late June asking questions about how this technology is being used and why the Privacy Commissioner wasn't consulted on its deployment. So for more perspective on this, we're joined live right now by technology expert Carmi Levy. Carmi, thanks for being here this afternoon. It seems like quite a concerning sort of turn of events or revelation here, the fact that, effectively they can sort of take data off your phone and you have no idea it's happening.
Exactly. It's incredibly sophisticated spyware. They implant it on the phone, completely stealth. And essentially what it does is it tracks your activity, sends it back to law enforcement. And then, of course, they build a dossier on everything that you did, including usernames, passwords, anywhere that you signed into, anyone that you communicated with. I mean, we want law enforcement to have the tools that they need to keep us safe. And in fairness, in recent years, it has become somewhat more difficult. We are using encrypted communication. We do need better tools so that they can break that encryption and know what the bad guys are doing. But at the same time, this crosses some pretty significant privacy lines. And to hear about it after the fact, this is what we've been doing for the past number of years, kind of disturbing.
Is there a sense, Carmi, of who this has sort of happened to in terms of, which phones? Or is it like, should you just assume that it's likely your phone has this sort of spyware on it?
Now, when I said they used it in 10 cases between 2018 and 2020, they didn't say who was targeted or what technology platforms. But you can assume that if they're targeting bad guys who are using phones like the rest of us, it could be an iPhone, could be an Android device, any connected device, and it could be something that you and I use as well. This is universal.
Mm-hmm. So it's like you said, you sort of highlight the dilemma here for law enforcement in terms of, wanting to sort of have the information necessary to sort of either outsmart the bad guys who are constantly looking to outsmart us and using technology to do that, but at the same time respecting that balance of privacy here. And the fact that the Privacy Commissioner has weighed in here is really interesting, because being said that why didn't the Privacy Commissioner sort of get a heads up on this or get some information on this? That makes it that sort of level of, gives you that creep factor.
Exactly. This has happened a number of times where the Privacy Commissioner was completely left out of the conversation. The technologies were implemented without any kind of oversight, without the implementation of any kind of framework. And so we've got to get better at this. We've got to learn, and law enforcement at all levels. Today we're talking about the RCMP, but really this is every level in Canada. They need to start bringing in the Privacy Commissioner right at the start whenever they use a new surveillance technology, and ask those questions and make sure that those protections are in place so that there isn't a gap between cops using it and Canadians wondering, is Big Brother staring over my shoulder? We need better protections.
Yeah, it kind of seems like a sort of better to ask forgiveness than ask for permission, that sort of thing here. So let me ask this, is there technology available to do this kind of surveillance or monitoring, Carvey, that the Privacy Commissioner, as far as you're aware of, would be okay with, or is that not been developed at this point?
Well, the technology is out there. I don't think that I think all of the technology is troublesome in the wrong hands or used in the wrong context. And so this stuff, it's almost like the technological equivalent of a nuclear weapon. Used wrong, this can do huge amounts of damage. So we need better frameworks. And we know that the technologies are out there that can be used to go after criminals, but also after journalists, after dissidents, after, political operatives. And so, this is, I think what we need is a set of rules that no matter what the technology is that is in use, that those rules apply to everyone. Law enforcement knows that that's the case. They follow appropriate due process, and so that your and my rights aren't compromised in the pursuit of a safer society.
So who do you think, Carmi, would need to be involved in sort of making those rules? Because, of course, we've got elected officials looking into this, but you would think you'd want to bring in, the Privacy Commissioner, you want to bring in tech experts, perhaps like yourself, or people who understand this technology. What's the pool of people that you would need to do something like you just described?
I think we have a reasonable sense of who those sort of proper actors are by who's testifying at the hearings today. So there's the public safety minister. There are current and former privacy commissioners, both at a federal and a provincial level. You have RCMP officers, but I wouldn't just stay within Canada. I would look to the FBI in the US. I would look to the Department of Justice. I would look to other law enforcement agencies around the world that have already used these technologies, and what processes have they followed? What what have lawmakers done there? Look to the European Union. They're years ahead of us on this. We shouldn't have to reinvent the wheel. We can simply follow their lead.
Last question, Carmi. What about the actual phone manufacturers, the people who make the hardware? Would they need to be involved in something like this?
They absolutely do. I mean, in the San Bernardino terrorist case, we saw Apple fighting tooth and nail to ensure that their phones did not have a backdoor that the FBI could access. And so certainly they need to be involved in the conversation. I was at the very least start with the two major platform owners, Apple and Google, but we can certainly go from there. This is Silicon Valley in general needs to be involved in this conversation too.
And that's exactly the case I was thinking of when I brought that up. Okay, thanks for the insight here. Technology expert Carmi Lever for joining us on CB24 Live at noon today. Appreciate the chat.
Thanks, Nick.